Well, I think we saw a team that's mentally and physically exhausted. If you told a Liverpool fan when Klopp signed, in the next 7 or 8 years we get to 3 Champions League finals, we win the league, we are 10th in the league, and now the cup competition is on February 23rd in 23, they've always chopped your hand off. So we've got to put it into perspective, what they've done and how they've done it over the last few years, how many joy they gave Liverpool supporters. But it came at a price because they didn't bring any new players in the last couple of seasons. People say he's too loyal. I would never accuse a manager of being too loyal because I don't know whether he had any money to spend.
Yeah.
And you've got no choice than to be loyal if you can't bring any new players in. And after last season, after being probably 50 minutes away from winning the league, because I believe if they won the league, they would have won the Champions League. They would have won everything. They were 15 or 20 minutes away of making history. Mentally, it was always hard, because what are you going to tell the lads when they come back after the summer? They have 3 weeks break, and you tell them, we do this again. They played 60-odd games. They played out their skin, and they did that for 5 years. And good things come to an end. And I think this is where we are now. You've got players who are maybe past their best, or maybe should leave the club or get moved on. And then you've got to bring new players in. It costs a lot of money. And this is probably, when you look back in history, that was probably Ferguson's biggest achievement, to rebuild a successful side. Because sometimes, he sold players when they were at their peak or just past it. Now, Liverpool didn't do this, but the case could be, or the reason could be, that they didn't have the money to spend.
Personnel, Didi, yes. I think that's the obvious solution for any coach. Personnel. And as you quite rightly said, if you don't get the money, if the funds aren't there, then all of a sudden you've got to adapt. You've got to change your thinking. Is there something you feel that Klopp could do now, that in the middle of a season, to give them some impetus from this point onwards to the end of the season, that just might change things and shape things for next season?
Well, I think it's very hard to change the way you play, because in football you've got to defend and you've got to attack, and you've got Guardiola who likes to pass the ball, and you've got Klopp who likes to be a bit more direct. But if you haven't got any defensive stability, it doesn't matter how you play, because you won't win games. And I think what made Liverpool successful in the past was that they had a spine with Becker, with Van Dijk, who transformed their team from a defensively vulnerable team to one of the best, if not the best teams defensively. You had in Fabinho probably the best holding midfielder, so you had that spine. And then you had the 3 up top with Firmino, Mane and Salah. And then the fullbacks are good. They're still good, even though the right back could be a bit better defensively. But it doesn't matter what these guys do. You haven't got a spine. If you haven't got a spine that you can rely on, you've got nothing. And the keeper's been solid, even though he's made a mistake on Tuesday. Fabinho's been off colour. He's not been the same. And Van Dijk is making mistakes. So then obviously it's very hard. And if you look at midfield, all the players they've got in midfield, who are you going to keep for next season, or who would you like to keep? Because obviously the ones who got contract, I'm not sure somebody will take them. But if you look at midfield now, you look at Bajcetic, who's done well, he's a young kid, of course you've got to keep him. Harvey Elliott, Curtis Jones, they haven't progressed. Thiago, I've never been a fan of. I don't think Liverpool is good enough to have a Thiago in the team at the moment. Fabinho hasn't been the same. Milner is coming to the end, been a brilliant player. Then you've got Keita and Oxlade-Chamberlain, who've been very disappointing since they've come. So you probably need 3 or 4 midfielders alone, and that takes a lot of money. Anfield Road end stand is getting extended. That costs an awful lot of money. So I just wonder how much money they've got in the summer, because if they're not remotely competitive, I'm not sure the manager will say.
Well, here's a question. It's a very important one that you're asking here. How much money do they have to spend? But how important is it, Didi, that they managed to go on a continued run and domestically, maybe win 3 or 4 games and finish in the top 4? And the reason I'm asking that, we hear stories about whether it's Jude Bellingham. I mean, is Jude Bellingham seriously going to go to Liverpool if they're not in the Champions League? Are the top players that Liverpool need going to be attracted and go to that club, a great club with fantastic history, if they're not in the Champions League?
Well, I think the dilemma Liverpool has got now, it's huge, as you say, Ali. It's huge to be in the Champions League, because the best players, they want to win the Champions League, and this, we watch it. Watching these knockout games is no better football than that. It's just brilliant, and this is where these guys want to be. I think the dilemma they face now, because Bellingham probably has to make his mind up in the next 4 or 5 weeks, and I don't think in 4 or 5 weeks' time we know whether Liverpool will finish. We may know that they don't finish in the top 4, but we won't know that they do finish in the top 4. So it's huge to get in Champions League. And the other thing is, it won't get any easier next season because Newcastle, with the funds they've got, they'll be thereabouts. Man United is rejuvenated. Arsenal is
Chelsea have to be
looking
better.
good. Chelsea has to be better. So it won't be any easier next season. And I think this is the dilemma they face now, to attract players when you don't know whether they're in the Champions League or not next season.
I tell you what, it is very, very interesting. I mean, look, they've lost Luis Diaz.
Yes,
Diogo Jota, I really like. I've always thought he's such a handy player. Gets your goals in big games and has got a great knack and a great feel for doing something for the team when it's needed. So they've been unlucky in lots of ways in terms of losing some very important players, I think Didi. But do you, because you're not going to be able to add everywhere. They're not going to be able to. I don't believe Liverpool are going to go and buy 8 in the summer. I don't think, and I personally don't think that's the formula and necessarily the antidote to the problems they've got right now. I don't think it is. But if they could add 3, would you say that 2 of those have to be in the middle of the park?
Well, I wouldn't worry about the forwards too much because Shota's back now. Luis Diaz is coming back. I heard you talk about Nunes before. I like Nunes if he sharpens his finishing up.
I do too.
I think he'll be a success at Liverpool. And Salah will come good at some stage again. He's got a cold spell at the moment, but we know with centre forwards or wingers sometimes if they do go cold, they're streaky at times. I think midfield is the area, and I think what they do need is a holding midfielder. I think if you add a holding midfielder in the summer, I'll look at Declan Rice. I think he'd be the player who could really transform the team because you need players who make other players better. And then you can build. Then you maybe get 1 or 2 next to him, attacking midfielders. Maybe one of them come good. You got Bajcetic now, maybe Harvey Elliott, Curtis Jones. Maybe they make that next step when they've got somebody. Because it's hard for a young player to progress or improve when the team is not functioning. Because you can't expect them to do the job. And Carvalho, we've not seen any of it. Don't know what the reason is there. And then at the back, probably a centre back. Matip has been a brilliant servant for the club. Maybe you need somebody to replace him, and then hopefully Joe Gomez at some stage shows his full potential because at the moment he makes too many mistakes.
I'm getting told we need to go to a break, but I can't let you go without asking you one question, mate. 2005, this year's finals in Istanbul. We were in that stadium in Istanbul. I was in that stadium in Istanbul, and I genuinely don't believe what I saw.
No.
Tell me about it, just very quickly if you could, mate.
I know sometimes you need a bit of luck, Ali, and sometimes things happen in football you can't explain. I think that was one of them.
It was amazing.
Brilliant.
Didi, will you come back on, mate?
Anytime.
Well, that's been brilliant having you. We really appreciate it. Fountain of
My
knowledge.
pleasure.
Great views. We didn't even get a chance to talk to you about League Cup, Newcastle, Manchester United.
Are they going to get on very quickly, Didi, at the weekend, Newcastle?
I think they'll win.
Dear.
Good stuff.
Come on, Tuna Army.
Thanks for your time, mate.
talkSPORT Breakfast, waking you up Monday to Friday morning from 6 a.m. on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.